Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Bird's Nest Podcast. I'm Joe Donahue. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're having a great holiday. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa to everybody who celebrates. The Philadelphia Eagles gave us a Christmas present early this year with an NFC East division title. It's the first time that any team in the NFC East has gone back-to-back at the top of the division since the Philadelphia Eagles did it in the early 2000s. The Eagles do, however, still have 2 games left in the season, and while the number 1 seed is going to either the Chicago Bears or to the NFC West winner after all of the results in Week 16 finally settled, the Eagles do still have a fighting chance for the number 2 seed. And we saw last year just how important that was, because with the Washington Commanders upsetting the Detroit Lions in the NFC divisional round, the Philadelphia Eagles actually wound up having home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And that becomes really critical because the Philadelphia Eagles have an all-time home playoff record of 20-8 in postseason games that are not played at a neutral site, so excluding Super Bowls. The Philadelphia Eagles have a history of delivering postseason results in Philadelphia. But in order to grab that, the Eagles definitely need to make sure that they are playing their starters over the course of the next 2 weeks. Now, I know I said in the postgame after the Commanders game that we probably wouldn't see the starters again, but with that number 2 seed still in play, it's worth revisiting, and the idea of playing starters has actually grown on me. But before we talk about whether or not they should, we do need to address how likely it is for the Eagles to even get the number 2 seed. So, according to The Athletic, going into the Week 17 games, the Philadelphia Eagles have a 12% chance of getting the number 2 seed. If the Eagles were to win out, that number does jump to 30%. So, the Eagles do need a little bit of help. Now, I know earlier in the season there was a little bit of a joking thing about the Eagles and the Bears being in a sort of alliance where the Eagles were winning over NFC North teams and the Bears were winning over NFC East teams, and it was all fine and hunky-dory, but that alliance has been long dead and buried, and with the fact that the Bears own the head-to-head over the Philadelphia Eagles thanks to the Bears' win on Black Friday, for the best chance for the Eagles to get the number 2 seed, fans should be rooting against the Chicago Bears for each of the next 2 weeks. Now, in Week 17, Chicago can wrap up the NFC North with either a win or a Packers loss. But if the Bears lose in both Week 17 and Week 18, the Eagles will have the number 2 seed. So it is really important for the Eagles to win out and the Bears to lose out. If Chicago loses one of their remaining 2 games, and Chicago is not playing some easy teams going into these final weeks, they're playing the 49ers and they're playing the Lions, who have their own playoff hopes. But if Chicago loses one of those 2 games and wins the other one, the Philadelphia Eagles would need help from the 49ers, Cardinals, and Panthers to get the number 2 seed. And while the 49ers probably will come through in that regard, I'm certainly not betting the house on either the Cardinals or the Panthers giving the Philadelphia Eagles any help with playoff seeding. Now, of course, if the Eagles lose one of their 2 games in the next 2 weeks, the number 2 seed is completely out of the question, and the Eagles could actually wind up falling out of 3 into 4 if the Bears lose out and the Panthers win both of their final 2 games. So as likely as the number 3 seed is, that's not even for sure. So as we take a look at the playoff picture, we know that the Eagles aren't as locked into the number 3 seed as probably we thought at a certain point. And so as we sit here on Christmas Eve, knowing all of the maneuvering that the Philadelphia Eagles can make and knowing the Eagles' history in playoff games at home, I do think that the Eagles are best served going for the number 2 seed as long as it's in play. Does that mean risking your starters against Buffalo? Yes, it does. And Buffalo does have their own playoff hopes on the line. The AFC East is still very much in play, and a Buffalo win prevents the Patriots from clinching that division this weekend. But even regardless of that, just setting yourself up for the best possible opportunity to have as many home games as possible is eminently more important, in my opinion. So given that that opportunity is still on the table, playing the starters does make a lot of sense. And this was effectively confirmed by Nick Sirianni in his weekly appearance on the 94 WIP morning show, who framed it as an opportunity to get things better
going into these final two games in the season.
Yeah, this is a week that we have to get better. This is an opportunity for us to go out there. We've been on short week after short week. We're finally on a normal week. As far as our rest goes. So this is a really important week for us, practice-wise, game-wise, to go and get better, and we'll see how everything plays itself out. But really important week for us to improve as a football team.
And as Nick alluded to, it is very fair to point out that the schedule has not been kind to the Philadelphia Eagles. They do have an extra day of rest, and they will certainly have a little bit of normalcy over the next few weeks, with a likely Sunday game on Week 18, which will allow the Philadelphia Eagles to reset a little bit before the playoffs. So again, playing starters makes a lot of sense for this Eagles team in my book, and I do think that is the move here. But the obvious argument against it is how banged up the Eagles are, especially on the offensive line. Grabbing an extra week of rest would be very helpful for this team as they go for a playoff run, and playing the starters aside, there are definitely questions on the injury report as we sit here on Wednesday. Lane Johnson was expected to play and still could on Sunday, was listed as a non-participant in Wednesday's injury report. The Eagles are very likely to have 2026 Pro Bowler Jalen Carter back, but Nakobe Dean was also a non-participant on Wednesday with a hamstring injury. There were a couple other folks on the report that raised a few eyebrows. A.J. Brown was a non-participant due to a teeth issue, and Landon Dickerson was sick, but I'm not really concerned at the end of the day about those two. Those two should be able to make appearances, no problem. But Lane Johnson being listed as a non-participant on Wednesday definitely is concerning, because having Lane, having that steadiness on the offensive line will really help the Philadelphia Eagles as they get ready for Buffalo. So ultimately, it is going to be a wait-and-see approach to things as the Eagles sort out those final details, but I am certainly hoping that Lane is ready to go on Sunday. And while the injury bug is always a risk, in Week 17, it's a risk I'm willing to take at this point. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles are slight underdogs versus the Bills, so let's take a look at what it will take to beat them. And for this Philadelphia Eagles offense, I'd again focus on establishing the run threat early and letting Jalen off the leash in the run game. The Philadelphia Eagles have done that successfully against bad teams over the last couple of weeks. Notably, one of Saquon's better games came against the Washington Commanders this past weekend. But the Bills are not on the same caliber as the Raiders and the Commanders. The Bills are second in the league against the pass. They're a playoff caliber team. They are absolutely vying for their division title. The Bills are a really, really good team. But their run defense, by comparison, stinks. Their run defense is 30th in the league in yards allowed per game at 144.3. So they can be run on. And one of the teams that's worse than them is the New York Giants. And the New York Giants were run on by the Philadelphia Eagles just before the bye. So yes, we do need to get Saquon and Tank Bigsby very, very involved. And I am expecting that both of those guys are going to have a really, really strong showing. Saquon in particular, who had another 100-plus yard rushing game this past week, will probably see a lot of game action over the course of this week. And also Tank Bigsby as well. Anytime that Tank Bigsby is handed the ball, even if the run game is otherwise struggling, Tank's usually able to make a lot of things happen, a lot of good things happen. And Tank is also riding high this week as well, coming off of his first touchdown as a Philadelphia Eagle. But even independent of all that, I would like to see more zone reads and more quarterback designed runs. Let Jalen contribute here. The Bills will struggle on the ground if you're able to do that, and Jalen is a huge weapon in the run game. So let him contribute. Take him off the leash, let him see what he can do with his legs, and I'm sure that the Eagles offense will be in a solid position to control the tempo of the game and really control the game from start to finish. Shifting now to the defense, the Bills are a top 5 offense with 373.1 yards per game, and they are the best team on the ground with 158.9 rushing yards per game. Through the air is going to be their weak point. They're averaging about 214.2 yards per game. That is 18th in the league by comparison. The Philadelphia Eagles should have an easier time shutting down the pass game than the run game, both due to that, and also due to the fact that the Birds are 21st in the league in rushing yards allowed per game. But the Philadelphia Eagles are definitely going to need to make sure that, in a particular way, Josh Allen is uncomfortable in the pocket. The Eagles should really focus on making sure that that pass game is a non-factor, and making sure that Josh Allen is brought down behind the line of scrimmage. The Bills' offense has given up a lot of sacks this season. It's averaging about 8.12% of pass attempts throughout the season that the Bills have given up a sack. That's 24th in the league. And this is where having Jalen Carter coming back into the lineup is really going to help the Eagles' defensive line. Jalen has been extraordinarily helpful in the Eagles getting pressure with the front four. So to have Jalen Carter back and establishing that front four, it's really, really going to be helpful. This way the Eagles will be able to disrupt the pocket and really own the line of scrimmage too, which will also help them control the run game. The Eagles also have to get turnovers, and the Bills are definitely not a good team in that regard. Josh Allen has been picked off 2.32% of the time, one of the worst percentages in the league, and the Bills have 18 giveaways on the season. Now, the Eagles have been very, very good over the course of this year defensively at generating those turnovers. Cooper DeJean in particular had an interception last week, and for that reason, among others, got Defensive Player of the Week for the first time in his career. Hopefully, the Philadelphia Eagles are able to continue that stretch, because turnovers is one of the most telling statistics about whether or not a team is going to win a particular football game. So the Philadelphia Eagles have a lot ahead of them going into this week. It's going to be one of their tougher challenges, but this is going to be a week where the Eagles will need to make sure that they're relying on and building upon the fundamentals that they've focused on over the course of the last couple of weeks. And with a strong showing against the Bills, and certainly, hopefully, a win, this Philadelphia Eagles team should be able to silence any lingering concerns about them. The Philadelphia Eagles are the only team in the NFL right now, going into Week 17, that will repeat as division champions. Everybody else, there's likely going to be new division champions. There definitely are in places like the AFC West, where the Kansas City Chiefs will not even make the playoffs for the first time this season in more than 10 years. So the Philadelphia Eagles definitely have those opportunities to silence that. But for now, this is actually the best I've felt about this Eagles team in quite some time this season. And hopefully, they'll be able to provide the city of Philadelphia with some reassurance that they're in good shape as they get ready to make a playoff run. But as always, let me know what you think in the comments below. What are your thoughts heading into this matchup against Buffalo? Should the Eagles be playing their starters, or should they be taking this as an extra week to rest up? Let me know. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning into the Bird's Nest Podcast. You can support the Bird's Nest Podcast by liking and subscribing to Bird's Nest Media right here on YouTube, as well as by sharing to your social media pages. You can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and iHeartRadio. Please visit birdsnestmedia.com for additional Eagles and NFL coverage. And if you feel so inclined to support us in a different way, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description below or at birdsnestmedia.com. Thank you so much for listening, and once again, a very happy holiday to everybody who celebrates Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah, which just recently ended at the time of this recording. Happy Kwanzaa, which will begin on Friday, if you celebrate that. Whatever holiday you celebrate at this particular time, I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you have some rest and relaxation available to you, that you're able to spend the time with the people that you care about. And as always, let's go Eagles.